We'll begin this segment from the FMDQ marketplace for an update on the fixed income market. I'm being joined by Samuel Musa, fixed income dealer with FSDH Merchant Bank. Hello, Samuel. Good morning.
Hi, Chimeze. Good morning.
So, for the first time, a 30-year Naira bond was issued at the FGN Bond Auction yesterday.
Yes.
What's the outcome?
Okay, so for the very first time, just like you said, the DMO introduced a 30-year bond, effectively extending the yield curve to 30 years. The amount on offer was 20 billion, and the subscription levels were essentially 4 times that figure, about 80 billion. This basically shows the acceptance by investors. Now, the auction cleared at 14.8% for the 30-year bond, and this basically gives the large buy-side institutional investors an outlet for them to invest their funds, given the long-term nature of the liabilities on their books. In addition to the 30-year bond, a new 10-year bond was issued as well. 40 billion was offered on that, and the DMO sold 37 billion. And the 5-year bond was reopened. 40 billion as well was offered on that, but 6.8 billion was sold on that at 14.5% for the 5-year and 14.55% for the 10-year bond. Now, comparing the outcome at this auction to the March bond auction, we would notice that at the March bond auction, all the tenors on offer, the 5, 7, and 10-year bonds, cleared at essentially the same rates, 13.5%. So we can see a huge jump in the clearing rates at this auction compared to the March bond auction.
You mentioned that the marginal rates were significantly different compared to the auction that held in March. What could have triggered this?
So at the March bond auction, there was a significant volume of non-competitive bids. So a total of 100 billion was offered across the 3 tenors, the 5, 7, and 10-year bonds. But the non-competitive bids accounted for about 92 billion, with just 29 billion coming into the market. So to a large extent, that affected the clearing rates at the March bond auction, despite the fact that at the time, market levels on those bonds were around 14.3 to 14.4%.
That investors would be funding for the settlement of their winnings at the bond auction. Is there sufficient liquidity in the system to take care of this?
Yes, there is. So the market opened at about 306 billion this week, and we saw the CBN conduct an OMO auction to mop up the excess liquidity in the system. So subscription levels, again, were relatively higher than what was offered, 268 billion compared to what was sold. So there was a gap of 127 billion, which accounted for some buying interest in the Treasury bills market yesterday on Treasury bills with maturities of between 120 days to about 230 days. However, we expect a maturity of OMO bills today of about 45 billion, in addition to some refund for the FX bid at the CBN. So with all of these inflows coming into the market, we see that the market will be relatively liquid enough to fund the settlement of the bond auction tomorrow.
All right, we just have tomorrow as the last trading day for the week. What's your outlook?
Well, barring any action on the CBN's part to mop up liquidity, excess liquidity in the system, just like I mentioned from the credits to the system today, we don't expect a huge jump in rates. We expect that activity in the Treasury bill space will be pretty much flat. Just like I mentioned, we will see a bit of buying interest around the 120 days to around the 200-day tenor bucket. And then for the bond space, we will basically see a readjustment of prices to reflect the closing rates at the bond auction yesterday. So we might still see a bit of buying interest by investors, maybe on the 5 and 10-year bonds.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Samuel. Thank you for your time. Samuel Musa is a fixed income dealer with FSDH Merchant Bank.